Welcome to the Friends of Zeus podcast. I'm Zeus. Everybody raise your hands. We got Mike up to my left. We got Jack up to my right. We got Tom from the Zeus and Tom show on the lower left for me. And we got Toar. He's one of our new and favorite guests. And look for us on, you guys will like this. We're now on Facebook. I've been adding on Spotify, eventually get that done. I got us onto Apple. And as always, there's some rumblings on Rumble. And we got the Facebook, of course, that everybody can go to. And I'm going to keep trying to add as I can. Oh, and you can
YouTube.
You can also go, what's that?
YouTube.
Yes, YouTube as well. And we also have a website. We'll just put it in the thing at the bottom. It's too long. We'll be working on that. And you can also email us at foz@friendsofzeuspodcast.com. And we'll get back to you just as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, we're looking for guests.
Yeah, we need to get some more. We've had some good luck with them recently. With that, all that being said, we're going to be doing our episode 57. Like I was saying earlier, I can't believe we've gone this far. I hope we do 20 times this. But it's episode 57. This is going to be Ukraine 2.0. We had Mike's cheerier disposition on the last one. Now we'll have Angry Tom doing it for this.
Bringing the heat. Bringing the heat.
There's stuff to be angry about, is there not? So we're going to revisit Ukraine. So first, let's just kind of start with I guess an update on where things are. I'm going to share my screen and show you a.
Oh, with the sound check, am I coming through okay?
Sibilance.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a map of Ukraine. You can see that well enough.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in red, those are the areas where the Russian soldiers have taken over. There's a little bit of blue, that's the Ukrainian counteroffensive, so not much of that. Mainly they're just digging in defense. Kiev is up here near the top. Unfortunately for them, it's close to Russia, to the Russian border, but they're holding out in Kiev. This started in February, and it's as of this recording, we're at March 15th, and they're still holding out. In terms of like the casualties, the numbers are kind of wonky. It depends on your sources. About 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers dead, hundreds of Ukrainian citizens, non-military are getting killed. Apparently Russia's bombing like apartment buildings and trains and buses headed towards the Polish border, things like that. In terms of Russian deaths, it's surprisingly, it's a lot more than Ukrainian, 4,500 to 11,000, depending on which report you're reading. But so up to 11,000 Russian soldiers dead compared to 3,000 Ukrainians. So Ukrainian, they're holding up. They're fighting. They're doing well.
Hey, it's their neighborhood.
Yeah, it's easier to fight a defensive war than an offensive war. That's what they say. So things are going well for Ukraine. Well, I shouldn't say they're going well, but under the circumstances,
better than expected for sure.
But okay, think of this. So the thing that got me angry, like Zeus was alluding to this week, was just when you contrast this with what was going on with Afghanistan, which we talked about. Okay, I can't move to the next screen. Hang on. There we go. Okay, this is President Zelenskyy. So look at this guy. Reminds me a little bit of Dukakis, if you're old enough to remember Dukakis with his helmet. But granted, more macho than Dukakis, and he's fighting for real. Yeah. He's not just playing in a tank. So this guy, President Zelenskyy, this guy, he's staying there in the country, didn't run away. He's not going somewhere else to be safe. He's staying there fighting with his people, alongside his people. Here's a picture of him. He's doing press conferences, just wearing a green, fatigue T-shirt. He's behind.
He's kind of a Jack little guy. Did you notice?
Jack, like our Jack?
No.
Like very fit. Yeah. No, he's yeah.
Oh, Jack.
Like our Jack. Yeah, exactly the same.
Perfect.
Yeah. He used to be a comedian.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking.
What are you benching these days, Jack?
Oh, Jesus, forget it.
His benching is hopefully I'll make it to the other bench before I collapse.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, so he's staying there. He's become kind of like a pop culture symbol.
He's a rock star.
Bravery. There's like
he's a global icon for sure.
When Biden offered to give him a ride out of the country to evacuate him, he said, "I don't need a ride. I need ammunition." So that became like a meme and a T-shirt. You'll see other things like that. Here's one that I'd seen of him with the letter Z for like Harry Potter, and then Putin is Voldemort. So it's just all these pop culture things because people are just kind of drawn to him, attracted to him because he's standing up. Now, he's not the only one though. So you guys know who
The
this is
Klitschko brothers.
Vitaly Klitschko.
Yeah, they're
former
Ukrainian,
heavyweight boxing champion. His brother Vladimir Klitschko was actually like the more acclaimed boxing champion, but Vitaly was good as well.
Both of them were the best in the world at one point or another, weren't they?
Yeah, they were kind of between the two of them. They had all the belts. And Vitaly is the mayor of Kiev. And he's got a net worth of about $80 million. His brother Vladimir has a net worth of like $90 million. And they're staying there. I mean, they could go anywhere in the world. They've got enough money. But here he is. I mean, this is unbelievable to me, these guys. So Vitaly Klitschko, his nickname was Dr. Iron Fist. And Vladimir was Dr. Steelhammer. And
so a little interesting, if I may, interesting about them. It's not really terribly surprising because these guys are clearly very intelligent boxers because both of them, I think maybe less than a handful of knockouts on them in their entire careers. And they are well known for being very technical boxers. Yeah. Like they don't get hit a lot. They're all about like striking for points. They didn't win by like nearly as many knockouts as they did by technical wins. It's just an interesting observation. It doesn't surprise me that they would take this kind of.
No, you're right. Like Vladimir would use the jab. They were tall. This guy Vitaly is 6'6", and I think Vladimir is probably about the same, somewhere in that range. And they would just use the jab, keep their opponents at a distance. They'd grind them down. They'd get their knockouts towards the end of the fight, but they weren't like Deontay Wilder, just like a one punch, put you to sleep type boxers.
Yeah.
So remember this guy?
Oh yeah.
The tank guy from Tiananmen Square.
Yes.
So here's another example of the Ukrainians standing up, and this is against all odds. There was a similar incident. So this is a Ukrainian guy standing in front of a Russian tank to block it.
Oh, this is? I was going to say.
This one is. The previous one was Tiananmen Square.
Gotcha. Okay.
In the Russian, so comparing the two armies, so Ukraine to Russia, Russia's about 5-1 larger in terms of number of soldiers, number of tanks. With the planes and the choppers, probably a little bit more than 5-1, but roughly 5-1 on all aspects, which is, so Ukraine's not that bad off, especially when you think of the number of like active soldiers for Russia that are actually there in Ukraine. I mean, the rest of them are probably spread out throughout the country, so they don't have all of them in the theater of battle, but Ukraine obviously does. So it's not that big of a mismatch, but still way overmatched in terms of Russia being one of the biggest powers in the world.
Yeah, but Afghanistan held them off for like that was their Vietnam. Afghanistan held them out forever, and this country is clearly bigger than Afghanistan.
Okay, speaking
Right?
of Afghanistan, so
Nice
this is
segue.
what makes me angry. Is this
See how I
idiot
did that?
here? This is what's his name? Bazrat Ghani, or as I call him, Asshat Ghani. So this guy was the president of Afghanistan when the Taliban came in, and it was complete opposite. So Afghanistan had 300,000 soldiers. Taliban had about 75,000. So they were actually had the larger numbers. But this guy, as soon as the Taliban started, moving towards Kabul, he got up and ran. He took cars, he took helicopters full of cash. Right now he's in Abu Dhabi. He's got like millions and millions of dollars. He just took off and ran, left everybody, the entire Afghan army. They just threw down there. We talked about this a few episodes back when we did our Afghan. They just dropped all their guns, ran for the hills, took off like cowards. This is what pisses me off. If you compare this to the Ukrainian people, and I'll get off the screen. I think that was my last slide. Oh, before it goes into the other stuff. Let me get us back on the screen. But compare that to the Ukrainian people. Let me just make my point.
Yeah.
I mean, it just pisses me off that these Afghan, that we trained them for 20 years. We gave them all this money, all the gear, everything they needed, got them all set up. They outnumbered their enemy, and they took off like cowards. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. And now their women are there. They're getting, the Taliban are just like, running roughshod over everything in Afghanistan. The women are back to being forced into a second-class situation. It's really sad. I mean, but you look at these Ukrainian guys, the president, even these like millionaire boxers, they don't have to be there. They could have left a long time ago. But they love their country. They stay, they fight, they're holding out, they're doing the best they can. It's tough odds. But I mean, am I the only one? Is this, I mean, it pisses me off.
Yeah, it pisses me off too, but you got to figure Afghanistan was under Taliban rule for so long that I think it was probably like second nature to these people. And in the end of the day, they were cowards. With the Ukraine, like I was watching Mike, I watched that documentary you recommended about I think it was the Maidan Revolution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell by the spirit of those people in Ukraine at that point, they were willing to fucking get beaten and dragged through the streets and arrested for freedom. And I'm talking about young people, old people. There was a lot of nationalism despite a corrupt government.
Jack, a lot of that is because they were under Russian rule for so long. They got a taste of it. They know what it is. That Russia like decimated Ukraine, especially like way back in the 20s. They just like starved them all to death.
Well, maybe with Afghanistan, we didn't win their hearts and minds as much as we thought.
I think that's a great call, Jack.
Did they not get it? I mean, after dealing with the Taliban, while the Taliban was there, they should have learned what the Taliban was. They should have realized, okay, we need to fight against the Taliban. I mean, how can they just turn their backs and let the Taliban march right back in?
I don't take umbrage with what you're saying, Tom. I don't think it's quite as simple as they just left. Because here's what I think, and we'll get back to Ukraine. I'll make this very brief. I don't think that they just left and cowered away. Definitely the president of Afghanistan, but what did these people have to look forward to but a better armed Taliban? Because who do you think was going to scoop up all those weapons?
Right.
They're
not better.
And how about this? Consider this. For once, some of them had a chance to bail out of this fucking war-torn country and get somewhere where they could maybe scrounge some kind of a living. So although, yes, some of them, we'll call it 40, 50, 60,000 of them. Yes, let's call them cowards. They ran. But I think a lot of them were just like I would have been as a soldier, which I was. I did whatever my government told me. And plus, it was a forced exit. Everything was chaos. Like most of these people are obviously very young and
It
inexperienced.
didn't have to be. If they
I
had wanted
understand
to
that.
stay and fight, like the Americans, like with the
But
British,
no,
I mean,
but
you can
dude,
stay and fight.
I
Zeus,
get that.
Zeus,
But
we trained them for 20 years. There had only been one American casualty.
They
in
had
like
more
14
gear.
years.
They had better guns. They had all of our trucks. They had night vision goggles. They had everything.
we
They were
trained them
better
for
equipped
20
than the
years.
Taliban.
How old do you think their average soldier was, though?
18.
20?
That's all they. How old was the average American soldier in World War II landing on the beaches of Normandy?
No, I get that. I'm just saying, I think we shouldn't paint with broad strokes with
Yeah.
everybody that left.
A lot of
I don't
those,
think it's
those
quite as-
were heroes were drafted too, though, right? There were a lot of
Yeah.
volunteers in World War II, but we're still talking about conscripts in a lot of ways. I think that
Yeah,
Jack kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit quick when he said the hearts and minds. I mean, one of the things that I think happened in Ukraine that started to push the divide between them and Putin was their embrace of Western culture. And no matter what you do in Afghanistan, it's not going to become a westernized nation because of the religious differences. They're still going to have more in common with their enemy, with their Muslims being Muslims than they would with the West.
Here's my thing.
Right?
We
Sorry.
failed them. We failed them. They went chaotic. I don't see how it's that easy to blame them. That's all
You
I'm saying.
can't blame
We failed
us.
them.
Whoa,
It's not
whoa.
our
Literally looking on
failure,
TV
Zeus,
and
Zeus.
saw weapons
It's not our
stacked
failure.
neatly for other people to grab up. We failed them.
No.
We did.
We
crazy.
gave them $300 billion worth of military hardware, and they left it there for somebody else to play with.
Right.
Why is it our job
We
to
left it.
instill? Why is it our job
Shit,
to
we could've
instill
moved it over to
nationalism
Ukraine.
and patriotism into the Afghanistan people? Why don't they have it already?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So it's a
I'm
little
not
bit,
seeing-
it's a little, well, it's a little bit different because one, Afghanistan it's a tribal culture. They don't have it. There is no singular Afghan identity. The United States and the West, you really tried to imprint that, but it never really took. Whereas Ukraine has a strong sense of identity and has for generations. And really what we are perceiving as being something that just started last month has been going on, as far as they're concerned, for 8 years, this invasion from Russia. So they're already a formed like opposition that has an identity as Ukrainians and are kind of steeled to it. Again, I'm not excusing Afghanistan, but the other thing in Afghanistan is, one, they're just not, again, they don't have the singular identity. And two, when we left, we did it chaotically, unnecessarily, and we yanked their intelligence and we yanked all of their air power like overnight, literally. So if you're in Afghanistan, you're like, holy crap, there was no plan for this. We did not even tell them we were leaving. We abandoned the airbase and didn't tell anyone. People showed up for work the next day and we were gone. Like that is.
It sounds like you're supporting my argument.
Well, and I'm not saying
fair,
I'm happy, and I'm not putting it all on the U.S. Although
Mike,
a lot of
the
it
The Taliban didn't have our intelligence. They didn't have our support either.
No, I
and
understand.
They're dealing
that.
with the same broken up country of Afghanistan that everybody else was, but they were able to take over the entire thing.
Which shows the importance of having a unified, thing.
Yeah.
I mean, as bad as the Taliban are, and they're horrible, but they are kind of
That's what I'm
cohesive.
saying.
They're a cohesive group. So
why wasn't there a freedom-loving, unified, coalition?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we've been trying to do that in the West for years, and you just can't impose. You can't put democracy or a Western form of government on people. It just doesn't work that way.
Listen, tangent alert. I caused this tangent, but my point was just that I don't think we should paint with such broad strokes with them. People got on planes risking falling off of them because it was so shitty to live there. I don't imagine 300,000 people didn't share some of that view. But my point is I just didn't want to paint with broad strokes.
I know, but Zeus, they're running away.
Well, hold on.
I don't jump onto an airplane.
I don't want to have this argument right now. I want to talk Ukraine. So what I'm saying is,
this is part of the Ukraine. I'm comparing Ukraine to Afghanistan. This is
I just don't think it's
we're
that
going to
easy
get
of a
back to Ukraine. Don't worry.
I mean, another piece of this too, though, like 3 million Ukrainians have left for safety, right? Now, these are let's say they're women and children.
Are they cowards, Tom?
No, but I'm not even saying that. But they
Those are the
also
women and
are
children.
a very, very different
And Sean
refugee
Penn.
than an Afghani refugee, or even more recently, a Syrian refugee. They're being accepted by a lot of nations that Afghans have nowhere to go. Where are they going to go?
These aren't the soldiers that are running away.
No, I agree.
This isn't the president.
My point is, the world views the random individual in Afghanistan much differently than they view the random Ukrainian.
Well,
And a lot of it has to do with skin color. A lot of it
view-
has to do with religion.
Wait a
No,
minute.
I would view the Afghanistan refugees much better if they had stood and fought. You know, you're going to have refugees in war. That's okay. But if their soldiers and their leaders they were standing up to the
Sure.
Taliban, I'd
Sure,
have much
but,
more
you know,
respect for all of them.
But
My point is, where do they go?
Well, Toar, wait a second. You're talking like the European countries never let any Syrians or Afghanis into their country. The population of most of the Western countries have totally shifted because of the immigration.
Again, I'm sure, but the world, you can't say the world doesn't view it differently, right, Jack?
Oh no, they probably do because they're coming from
think-
these, countries that are war torn. But that's what they're doing with the Ukraine too. So I don't know if
I think it's, well, again, and again, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I didn't sit in on your Afghanistan conversation. I'm just saying that the way that the view of it is, like, I understand, Tom, what you're saying about having respect for people that stand up for fight for their right. Most of these people have never had rights, and we're saying that in the United States, can we call it an occupation that we were there? Not really, but sort of. Even just helping militarily, like. Again, we weren't trying to westernize them.
Look, but
Right.
we didn't have rights either until we wrote the Bill of Rights and we made the rights. You know, if you want rights, you have to create it. You have to fight for it.
Yeah, no, well, yes, I can see that. Not everybody has
it's
this.
more complex than I'm saying. I grant you that, but it's still, there's something way wrong with the way they just, to me, it was like very cowardly what Afghanistan did.
Do you think that slaves were cowardlier in this nation, in the United States, for not standing up to their oppressors? Because that's much more similar to me, in that they were beaten down. Literally, they never had an idea of freedom. So
the Afghan soldiers had guns in their hands, and they dropped them and ran. I don't see how you can compare that to slavery.
Well, I'm just saying that the mentality is similar, is what you're saying. So the respect idea is what you're saying about them. I understand they should have, sure.
But there were slave revolts in the Underground Railroad, and a lot of former slaves fought in the Civil War.
It might be a faulty analogy, but I'm just trying to say, we're putting American ideals on a people that don't necessarily have an understanding of what those ideals are.
It's different to rise up against the Taliban today because they've got control and they can single you out and execute you. And it's very dangerous to fight now. But they were in a situation where they had the upper hand and they gave it away. Would
you consider the Taliban? What is the makeup of the Taliban? Is it primarily Afghan? Again, I'm not learned in this, so is it a primarily Afghan force?
Yeah,
so we're talking.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so we're really talking about civil war too. So think about that. Like, that's a very, very different mentality than the Ukrainians standing up to another sovereign nation with a flag. That's something that's, again, we're talking about nuances of what their psyche is in time of war, right? And I don't think it's quite one-to-one. I understand exactly what you're saying and why Zelenskyy is becoming, he is a global hero that's going to be mentioned in the same breath as Putin, which is pretty unbelievable if you think about his history is this long and Putin's been this long. Right. That's pretty phenomenal, right? And he's a global icon now. I don't know that anybody in Afghanistan could step up and play that same role because he's not looking to the West for help. They're not looking to the West for help. We were their help, and we kind of did abandon them. Trump announced we were leaving, and then Biden did it. And like, why? I don't understand why yet. I don't understand how the military budget goes up after we abandon Afghanistan. Like, I don't understand a lot of things when it comes to the military industrial complex in this country. And I think ultimately, like, you know, we said we left $300 billion worth of stuff there. Who got paid for that? Right? There was some, you know, somebody was profiteering off
sold it to the government, got paid for it.
But, you know, but was it sold from us and we got contracted to the industrial complex? So that 300 billion was getting spent somewhere not to us.
No,
Right?
You don't want to give it over
the
to the
middleman, though,
hands
right?
of the Taliban.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I totally agree
Next
with
time
that.
we do it, next time we do something like this, we put C4 in the stocks. And we leave it for,
I think
let it go
also
the same way it did and just blow them all up.
another thing, in addition to like the tribalism of Afghanistan, if you look how their government was formed, it was, you know, they did have voting, but it was a very top down, you know, we kind of structured it. I mean, similar to what we did in Iran, you know, when we propped up the Shah. I mean, before the zealots took over. So it was very top down. Whereas in Ukraine, you know, they fought in not actually when the Soviet Union broke up and they declared their independence in '97 and then had elections, and then the first guy that won the presidency was kind of discovered to be just a toady of the Kremlin anyway. So the people were like, wait a minute, not Yeltsin. It was no, it was not, well, 93 is when they declared, 92 when they declared their independence after the Soviet Union fell. Anyway, the point is the first leader who was elected and was like, oh, right, we're independent, we elected our own guy, but he was very much still under the auspices of the former Soviet Union. So when people figured that out, they were like, we got to get rid of this guy. So they have a track record of true representative government. And so they have skin in the game. They have ownership of it. So when someone comes in and tries to take it over, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Again, a nation, it's land to a degree. I mean, I definitely believe in sovereignty and the concept of nation states and everything else. But, you know, nations are also groups of people. So Ukraine, you have a united society. In Afghan, you had a very fractured society. And
it's not 100%. I mean, you got
it's not 100%.
There's the Cossacks and the Tartars, and there's Russians in there, and in the Crimea, and so all those areas that are kind of breaking apart, and the dumbass region, as I call it, the Donbass.
I mean, I think an interesting point, just a little bit of a tangent, but still on the Ukraine
Polish
thing
there too, by the way. Sorry. Go ahead.
You know, when you were having your slides, you know, we had these photographs of the boxer with the rifle posed just so, and Zelenskyy with his, like, you know, sitting in the chair. I mean, there's a lot of framing that's done in this, and Afghanistan did not. Those people did not benefit from that. There was no. I'm not calling what's coming out.
The only thing you saw in the picture in Afghanistan was the backside of President.
I got you, but we've got people on the ground taking video, people standing up the tanks. We got the lady telling off the Russian soldier. The world did not have that same perception. It was probably maybe because it wasn't happening. So I'm not saying it was, you know, but it also the narrative was much different. Much different.
You know, Valley Forge or Paul Revere or whatever. You can build that stuff, but the bottom line is that those guys are there.
No,
and
I'm with you, Tom.
You couldn't stage those photos if Klitschko wasn't there in Kiev, and if
I got you. I'm not trying to defend.
That note.
Yeah.
May I, Mike? I'm sorry. To that note, and again, I support Ukraine, but there is all these stories we're also hearing about how the wives and children are leaving, and somebody who is vehemently against war still has to stay and fight. And I'm not saying that I don't support them, but that's not, you know, I would hate it if I didn't want to fight and I was forced to fight. Granted, most of them want to fight, so that's a great thing.
Forced by what?
But it's not like it's a perfect thing either. I mean, I'm definitely team Ukraine. But let's not paint it as they're not, you know, doing things in a way that could be deemed unpopular later on.
Like what?
Go ahead,
Like
please.
a father having to leave his newborn because he has to stay at the border and fight a war that he doesn't want to fight when all he wants to do is be with his brand new baby.
Yeah. No, they did conscript, it was 18 to 65-year-olds, something along those lines.
That's every war.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's,
agree.
Nobody's
agree,
going to look
but
at that
let's-
as
but let's not-
unpopular later.
But I'm just trying to be pragmatic about it and say that war sucks.
absolutely.
And both sides are going to do shitty things. However, none of this would be going on if the fucking Putin didn't decide that he wanted to go James Bond villain and try and fucking rule the world.
Of course.
There's actually an interesting parallel between what's, you know, again, some of the propaganda that's coming out about the Russian army.
You say GoldenEye, I'm going to punch you.
No, shit. No, with the Afghani army, right? Because there are a number of Russians that are there that don't want to be there. We're seeing a lot of reports of them surrendering, right?
Right.
Like that, laying down their arms for a war that they don't want to be a part of. Like that's actually a more interesting parallel to me because you're talking about the mentality and the psyche, right? So it's like, you know, in Afghanistan, maybe it was, you know, this is my brother or my cousin that's a Taliban, or this is somebody because we're in civil war. I don't want to fight them. I'm just going to lay down because that's going to happen anyway. I'm going to just, you know, this is what it was. This is what I know. The Russians are saying, why am I fighting people that I was traveling to when they were coming to visit me? And I have distant relatives and cousins and we're friends on Facebook. And, you know, there's a similarity there where, you know, again, I think it's probably in a lot of war when, you know, people are, you know, why am I here? What am I doing? You know, it's
not the size of the dog in the fight, size of the fight in the dog. Taliban wanted it more. I agree with you. You're probably right. And Ukraine wants it more than Russia does. The Russian army is in shambles. I mean, a lot of these guys are coming in. They're kind of like the reserves, really, that they're throwing in there. They're pulling people from Syria and from, you know, Crimea, I think, in different places, Chechnya, pulling them in to fight in the front lines. And a lot of these guys are showing up and they're getting captured, and they interview these guys and they say, you know, why are you here? And they're like, I don't know. They told us it was just a military operation, like a test, like
I've seen a lot of those. Yep.
They didn't even know they were going in.
Here's another thing, and I don't know if this is true or not. You guys have been, I've got turmoil outside here. So, but something I heard or read or saw was about these Russian soldiers that were being forced to like shoot other Russian soldiers for trying to bail. And it just harkened back. If this is true,
that's old school for Russia.
Well,
they were doing that in World War II.
But here's the point. Back then, you got to look at the people we had, both the bad and the good. They had a presence that, okay, maybe the Zelenskyy, I'd say Zelenskyy has a presence that is inspiring. Putin, not so much, but Putin's trying to pull off what Stalin took 20, 30 years to build. And Stalin gained a following. Stalin did a lot of, you know, he had people that supported him. He did things in the right way. Putin is just kind of
Stalin
pushed
did things
his way through everything.
I don't know.
What?
Stalin gained.
Stalin did things in the right
way.
I'm not saying he did the right thing.
Yeah.
Through a lot of propaganda.
Don't mince my words. I'm not saying he did the right thing. I'm saying that
he killed like 30 million people of his own people.
He was very hated.
Right. Okay. I'm talking before that. I'm talking about the times that led up to it. And what I'm saying is all these leaders at those times had presence. Patton, who else? Stalin, you had your Lenin, you had these people that had these.
McCartney.
He was never a nice guy. He was killing people all the way to the top.
I'm not saying nice
once
guy.
He got
I'm
to
not
the
saying
top,
nice.
He was purging
Listen,
people right and left.
Tom, don't mince my words. I'm not saying
When
nice
was the
guys.
good-
I'm saying that they
when was the
had a
good Stalin?
presence. What?
When was
No,
the
I'm not
good
saying
Stalin?
All right, let's
Stop.
finish your
Stop.
point.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they were good or bad. I'm saying that they had a
Gravitas.
presence. They,
People
je
respected
ne
them.
sais quoi. You know,
Yeah.
They did
something
respect
that,
him. They
that
still do.
Putin clearly doesn't have. Nobody's liked him from go. His
Mm.
thing was all like Weasley, behind the scenes, KGB, knows where the bodies are buried kind of thing. And these people, for lack of a better term, fought horribly to get.
You're talking about like someone who's a leader versus whatever, not a leader. I mean,
Right.
but Putin is.
Putin's more like Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? I'm not saying that these guys were good. I'm saying that they exuded power. It wasn't questioned with.
President Trump is another one that fits into that bill. Quite
That would be
honestly,
like a Rasputin, not Wormtongue wasn't the actual leader, but
Right. That's
I know
what
what
I'm
you
saying.
mean.
I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm saying that Putin was the one in the ear of the people, and that's how, or ear in the people that were in charge. And then he got his chance to stab them in the back and took it, and he knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
That's why he stays where he's at. It's not because he's a good leader. It's because he knows
He's an
everything
authoritarian.
about everyone.
Have
I
you
want to say
seen?
they went right from Yeltsin to Putin.
They did. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're right from Yeltsin to Putin. Have you seen these? Just on a side note, have you seen these photographs of Putin meeting with people, like even within his own government, where he's at one end of like these 50-foot long
Yes.
tables, and I really think he just doesn't want he doesn't let anyone near him physically at all. I mean, because he is so
For security or
for security, I believe so.
trip?
And I think it's a power trip, but I think it's also security at this point because
I've got a theory, Mike. I've got a theory on that.
yes, what is
One
it?
word. COVID.
Could be, yeah. Maybe
could be very true.
Because that would be a weak. He would feel that was a weak thing if he got it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but come on,
I was actually joking, but that's all right.
I don't know. Maybe it is.
I think it's more true than you think, Jack. I think it's a combination of COVID, and it's interesting to say security, but I think it's actually insecurity, right?
Well,
because I think that physical security, but his
intimidation.
I think it's almost his mental state is insecurity
because
he's a little paranoid. There's a little paranoia that's going on for sure. I think you're seeing, the reports of, well, the only way this ends is if somebody takes him out. And he knows that too. He's definitely smart, even if he's losing it a little bit. He knows that the thing he has to fear the most is somebody that's close to him that decides to, et tu, Brute, on the Ides of March, right? We're a little late for that, but that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, he doesn't want that to happen, so I put 60 feet of table between us.
Yeah, I think he's worried of like a Project Valkyrie, like with somebody putting
absolutely.
Well, and to that note, I was talking. I think was it you, Mike, that was talking about when I watch Putin on TV. I mean, I get a hard, cruel vibe off of him, but I don't get a unmeasured, insane quality off of him like I do with our own leader. You know what I mean? And then, well, obviously I don't think Biden's like, an evil person, but I don't get a stable vibe off of him. When I look
Can
at
I just
Putin,
ask quick as an aside, do you get a stable vibe off of Trump?
No.
Okay, good. All right. As long as we both agree on that.
But he's sharper, and that's Putin. Putin was afraid of Trump doing something. He says
I totally
that
disagree
Biden
with you there. I think Trump and he wanted to pull us out of NATO, which would have totally done exactly what Putin wanted.
He wanted NATO,
wanted to
right?
pull us. He also wanted to pull us out of Afghanistan in a much more measured.
Sure, I agree with that. I'm talking. We're looking at NATO though, and look.
He wanted
that was a
goals are.
He wanted NATO to pay.
He wanted NATO to step up.
He wanted NATO to step up.
He didn't really.
Wanted everybody to step up.
Didn't he talk twice about pulling out of NATO at least?
He was bluffing though. He was just negotiating.
And the WHO. Okay. I think he wanted to pull out of the WHO as well.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Okay, but the thing is, I mean, to Toar's point, I mean, if you have a scale, and again, we don't know. I mean, you can't get inside these people's heads. So you really just have to look at like actions. And I would say, actions. I mean, Trump was, say what you want, he was definitely one of the most non-interventionalist presidents that we've had. He was very leery about getting into foreign affairs, and we didn't. He's the first president in our lifetimes that we didn't start a war with anybody under him, which is saying something. But
yeah, but right after he left, man, right after he left.
But what I'm saying is his strategy. If you look at just like how people are strategically, the way he handled himself was, the foreign leaders, he was very unpredictable, but he was very, this whole like America first, there was no question where he was going with things. But to Toar's point, he also didn't commit to anything. He would be friendly with the little guy in North Korea. You know,
that's what I was going to say. I think his foreign policy is actually pretty predictable. If you're a totalitarian, he was very friendly with you, and that goes across. That's Turkey. That's North Korea. That's Russia.
I don't think that was
Toar, there were less. There were less missile tests under Trump in North Korea. I'm just saying, if you look at the deliverables, whatever you want to say, and it doesn't work with everybody. It worked with him.
Kim Jong-un didn't honor the ceasefire that he negotiated with him, right?
What I'm saying is he had. There's been more.
Yeah.
There were less missile tests under Trump than previous. Is all whatever you want to say about
so
it.
as far that's fine. As far as being predictable, though, I mean,
no, you're right. Sure. We can
more. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
No, I'm saying we can at least agree that there was a certain stability vibe that Trump lacked. I would
agree to that. Yeah,
and
that worked in his favor with Putin.
It worked in his favor with some of these foreign leaders because they were shit scared. They didn't know what he was going to do.
And not everyone can pull. And not everyone can pull that off. And that was just his way of doing it. It's not like that's the best way to be. But for him,
Putin,
it worked for him.
If you move on Ukraine, he's going to bomb. He's going to bomb Moscow.
Well, a lot of people don't realize
Putin
this.
Didn't move on Ukraine.
You remember in Syria. After that whole, when they had that whole chemical weapons, just took a town out and everything, Trump launched an attack on a Russian airbase there and killed like 160 pilots, not all mercenaries, Russian like Air Force people. And Putin didn't do anything after that. And that didn't even get a lot of news. So again, he was unpredictable. I think Putin was like, holy crap, I don't know what this guy's going to do. And I'm not saying that he was scared of Trump, but he definitely had to figure that in. Whereas and again, I have a lot of things I can say about Biden. I'm not coming down on Biden by saying this, but Biden is incredibly predictable. I mean, Biden telegraphs exactly what he's going to say and do weeks ahead of time. So there's no mystery about, the five of us on here, I bet you I could write down how Biden's going to react to any situation you give me, and I'm probably going to be right like 75% of the time.
I think that's probably true. I was disappointed in Biden I think we should have stopped importing oil immediately. I think that he was afraid that gas prices would rise and it would be used against him politically. But by not banning imports immediately, he made it political. Very disappointed in that. I actually don't mind that in the week run-up, that he was giving intelligence information and kind of disproving and discounting what Putin was saying nationally with our own intelligence. I didn't mind him doing that. I think that they should have had those sanctions ready to go as soon as the first bomb dropped, instead of waiting a week and making sure that it could happen. I think they needed their ducks in a row quicker. We're looking at, depending on what source you're reading, the possible collapse of the Russian economy, the rubles in the toilet. If that had happened a week earlier, we're a week farther along in that, and maybe it's that much harder for Putin to keep his people in line. I'm not psyched about the way the president has reacted, for sure. I don't know if they're quite mistakes as opposed to missteps, which are a little bit different, right? I think that you got to let sanctions work. We're going to see if we're going to defend every inch of NATO, if that's real, as Putin gets closer and closer to Poland. We're going to see how real that is. you know, we're going to
Getting awful close.
we're going to be tested. NATO is going to be tested. Our resolve is going to be tested as a people because gas prices are going to go up, and it is going to be used in a political way. And realistically, if we're for Ukraine, we got to suck it up at the pump, and that's kind of a difficult thing to say. Domestic policy and foreign policy, where they intersect. This is certainly, you know, it's not to say that's the only thing. The result of the, you know, obviously the freaking gas companies are having huge profits. Like war profiteering is something that, you know, has been going on forever. So I was trying to make the point of that $300 billion worth of equipment. Like, yeah, they paid us, but we paid who? We didn't make 300 billion because we bought them from somebody, right? We bought them from Lockheed or whatever it is. So that's cash money going somewhere else that we, you know, we need to talk about somewhere too at some point with all this. Because as we get run up to war, the next thing becomes, are we sending our boys over there? If Poland gets invaded, if Poland gets hit, are we sending our boys over there in a more active war?
We don't have to. We have like 20,000 soldiers sitting on the Polish border right now.
I think we have them in Poland. I think they're in Poland.
Everything we need in Poland, to launch a significant assault if we wanted to.
I think that's ultimately is the question. Do we, when Poland does get hit or when the next nation state does get invaded that is a part of NATO, are we there to defend or do we go on the offensive and attack? And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as what is our role in this as we move forward, because it's not going to be over quickly.
I think we will spin it as defensive.
Of course,
but it'll most definitely be offensive.
Well, we certainly hit that fucking convoy, right? I'm sorry, excuse my language, but you know, those are things that, like, you know, we've got all these drones.
Which convoy?
Right? The 40-mile convoy.
The Freedom Convoy?
Russians.
No, the other Freedom. Okay.
It's like, which convoy are you upset about?
No,
it never saw it coming.
Russian,
okay.
No,
the Ukrainians are doing
right?
fine. They're
Did anybody notice 40 miles of tanks going by?
Yeah. They had Canadian flags on them for some reason. I don't know what was going on with that.
I do want to go around the room and
follow up
on what Toar did, because I want to get everybody. So what would you do different compared to what Biden's doing now? And let's just keep it like as it is, of just Russia trying to conquer Ukraine and not, let's say it doesn't go into NATO. Because surprisingly, I'll probably surprise you, but I don't really have a lot of complaints with what Biden's doing post-invasion. He did everything wrong leading up to. He could have prevented it. He could have did a lot of things different, and this never would have happened. So I disagree with everything he did up to the invasion. But now post-invasion, the sanctions, the threats, he's putting the pressure on. What he's doing to the Russian economy, he's doing all the right things, I think, short of going in, which I wouldn't do either. I wouldn't send in troops to Ukraine. So I pretty much agree, surprisingly, with what he's done up to this point. So what about you guys, though?
Yeah, Tom.
Can I go first?
Tom, let me piggyback on that because I'm kind of with you. So before I lose the point, I just want to get that out there. My mom has Fox News on during the day, like all fucking day. Like it's enough's enough with the Ukraine. That's kind of where I'm at this point.
He's at the Ukraine. Yeah.
The Ukraine.
Is that like the Miami University or
like
the Batman? Come on.
The Miami University.
My name's Zelenskyy. Anyway, I'm with the Ukraine.
Wait, sorry, Jack, you got it.
I'm trying, buddy.
I know.
Yeah, anyway, so she's got these ladies that are on there in the afternoon, like all day. It's like Harris Faulkner is one, and Kayleigh McEnany, the one that used to be the press secretary for Trump.
McElhaney.
They'll have guests on there, and they're showing all the horrible footage of the bombed residences and this and that. And they're basically just playing up the emotion. They're showing pictures of Zelenskyy. They're basically beating the war drums all fucking day. And they're bashing Biden. Why doesn't he do more? Why doesn't he let the jets go? Why don't we do the no-fly zone? And I'm sitting there and I'm actually defending Joe fucking Biden because I'm like, look, I can't believe it. I'm like, what are you ladies trying to get us into here? If we actually take part in a no-fly zone where we send our air weapons,
that's an act of war.
That's an
World War III.
That's World War III. So I mean, I'm hoping they reach a diplomatic conclusion here. If Putin wants the dumbass province or whatever it's called, they may have to let him have it at this point because
it's compromised where it saves face for him at least a little bit. It gives him he's advanced his line. It's fucking Braveheart. You've increased your lands. It's like that makes sense, Jack. One of the things that I think that's important. I still want everyone to
women.
Prima nocta. No. So one of the things that you said there is, Fox is something. There's some crazy shit going on at Fox. When you look at what Tucker Carlson is saying. And they're using his words on Russian TV to enhance their case for war. Like there's something going on with Fox that is I don't want to say un-American as much as I'll say pro-Putin, right? You know what I mean?
I think it's more anti-Biden
because Tucker Carlson at least is telling both sides of the story from what I'm watching, and he seems to have more of a stance of us not jumping the gun.
Yeah,
I might agree with that.
Totally not an interventionist. Yeah,
that's might possibly be true, but he's also saying things like, "Why should I side with Ukraine? They haven't done anything, so I'm going to side with Russia."
He's never said that.
He kind of did.
No, he didn't. It's the one show I watched during the night, and he's never said he sides with Russia. It's never happened.
Okay, I might be paraphrasing incorrectly then, but that's kind of been his take, though, yeah?
No.
He certainly hasn't said we're backing Ukraine.
If he just asked the question, I mean, that's
his take is basically Tucker's thing is he's a non-interventionist. His whole thing that he's questioning is like what exactly is going on there, like everything and this has been my point on everything in the last 10 years, but it's like we have all these people that are like patting themselves on the back. I'm a journalist, I work in the media, like it's a noble profession. We have no idea what the fuck's going on. Like we never have any idea what the fuck's going on. It's always just like propaganda, it's couching, it's like
I disagree with you.
You never know what's going on.
I think that is I disagree with you there. I don't think that every individual journalist at CNN, at MSNBC, even at Fox, are strictly going with what their bosses tell them to do as far as an agenda goes. I think that there are good journalists still in this world, and I think their fight is for the truth. Ultimately,
the last good journalist was fucking
Walter Cronkite.
No, I mean that's way back. Those were real.
Might have been the last one.
Show. The guy from the Daily Show. He would have
Jon Stewart.
Sure.
Jon Stewart. That dude was.
He was a pundit. He's not a journalist. He's not a journalist.
Whatever, dude.
That's my point. It's not whatever.
No, let me speak.
It's a definition in the dictionary. You can look it up.
We got right now.
He's not a journalist. And Toar, I'm talking about people who source their stories.
Totally agree.
Back it up, and you just don't see that anymore. And I'm just saying,
say commentator.
I think you do. I think that that's a very, very big, again, a big brush stroke there. I think that there are plenty of New York Times journalists and plenty of CNN journalists that are looking for that they're doing it the right way. I really do. I maybe I'm naive, but I think that there's more of that than you're giving credit for. I don't think that every one of these people has.
I never said it was every one of them. I said it's the vast majority.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot. I think it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite of that. I think that it's very possible that the bosses of these people are that way. I think that the rank and file journalist that's out there that's trying to make their bones and do what they've learned in journalism school. I'm not as pessimistic about them as you are.
Here's the thing. I've seen.
I like Substack.
Substack is fantastic.
I want to ask a question. So we've got this whole Jon Stewart's not a journalist thing. I get that he is not
Let's move on.
No, wait, I'm going to make a point. Mike likes to talk about Russell Brand.
He's not a journalist either.
Okay, but where do we define that? Aren't journalists just commentators?
No,
No,
Okay,
No.
what is,
that's what we're
Why?
complaining
Because-
about.
no,
I
somebody
think
comes and
Joe
gets-
Rogan's not a journalist.
He's
Hold
not
on,
a
hold on.
journalist.
not.
Here's my
Yeah.
point.
Tucker Carlson's not.
Our commentators, okay, they just have the story brought to them from the people that they choose to have the story brought to them. They're journalists. I mean, so really, did Cronkite go out and get the story? Did he
Yes,
have a-
sometimes when he was
Sometimes.
younger.
No, but he
Sometimes it's-
reported the facts. There's a
But-
difference between just give the facts versus.
But I
trying
would
to
argue that
tie your own
Rogan,
Not
opinion.
either, Mike.
listen, I would
I
argue
know.
that Rogan, Brand, Stewart, they went. Nobody ever dissed.
Hannity, Carlson, they're all the same. They're
Yeah,
all in that
all
same
just
bucket.
faces for the people that are doing the real work. So I don't know that they're
Cuomo,
not
Don
commentators
Lemon,
either.
everyone.
Do you think
Sure,
Don Lemon-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel Maddow, all of them.
All of them.
You know, again,
The View.
there's a difference
View.
in the integrity level, I think. Like ultimately, Alex Jones goes out and he says that the kids at Newtown were a fake. It's a false flag. And then he
That
gets
was dumb.
sued. Well, then he gets sued and then he goes into court and says, no, it's just a persona. I'm not that way. And then he comes
Right.
back out and he keeps saying those things.
But-
That,
but
like,
the
Goldberg,
three
a
Fox,
journalist?
Fox News,
I would
they're
say-
pundits. Fox,
It's
their
almost like-
opinion.
It's
Fox
almost
News-
Let me
like
say
the,
this, let me say this. Everybody, one sec.
Yeah,
Let me just say this. The three people that we were talking about, Stewart, Brand, Rogan, I would say they have credibility as human beings.
they're
Far more
polemicists.
than-
They're polemicists. They're polemicists. They are good with rhetoric, and they have a point of view, and they're curious, and they ask
But
a lot of
again,
questions, and they're
here's my
fantastic. They're
argument.
great. They're fantastic.
Here's my
I
thing.
love people that do that.
Yeah, and
I
they
don't think
actually,
Riley, hold on. This is what I'm trying to get across. I don't think Riley went out and did the work. Bill O'Reilly, or O'Reilly, sorry. I don't think, now Cronkite, yes. Sam Donaldson, yes. Dan Rather, yes. Some of those guys back in the day.
They're different though. Those are
But what I'm
actual
saying is,
newsmen.
I don't see much of a
Getting
difference
bogged
between
down.
what you guys are calling a
No.
commentator and what the news is calling a journalist.
What do we do? Are we journalists?
Definitely not.
No,
We don't do
Commentators
it.
with
you're
opinions.
not claiming that.
Neither is
Right.
Rogan.
Rogan's not claiming it either, but
Neither is
Cuomo
Jon
did.
Stewart.
Where does wait?
Don
where does
Lemon-
he-
Stewart's not claiming.
Don Lemon
Guys,
claims to be a
wait.
journalist.
Guys,
You
let's
guys
get back
fail to
to
understand what I'm
Ukraine.
saying. I'm saying that
Yeah,
none of
Zeus,
them are
let
I
it
fucking.
don't
go.
care anymore.
let it go, Zeus.
Forget about. I want to get to Ukraine. We got Mike
Yeah.
and then Zeus. So, Mike, what would you
Yeah.
do different than what
So
Biden's doing?
there's two things. These are two quick examples. And again, this is like with our
Look, there's another one.
our media is deficient. Look, if I hired an electrician and they did and my house burned down, I would be upset. If I depend on the institution of journalism and I am misinformed or not informed, or I can't find certain information on stuff, then I feel like they're doing a shitty job. That's the beginning and end of it. But
Talk
look at,
about
like-
journalism again. I'm trying to
what?
get
So
back to
I know I'm
Ukraine.
not. That was all. But listen, these are two
This
examples.
is the biggest.
How
tangent
many
yet.
do you guys know? Do you guys
Oh my
know
God.
about the agreement that NATO and the United States made with the Soviet Union in regards to Ukraine after the fall of the Soviet Union? I believe it was like 1994, the Budapest Accord, where
Oh,
the
yes.
Russia and the West both convinced Ukraine to give up their nuclear weapons. They had the third most warheads in the world
Right.
following the
Yeah.
fall of the Soviet Union. And the condition was that they would give up their nuclear warheads, and that the West and Russia both agreed that they would come to Ukraine's defense and make sure that they would be taken care of no matter what. So that took like 25 years for that to go right out the toilet. Do you ever hear anyone talk about that? Not only is Russia violating that, which on its own, when all these people are saying like, well, there's all these other circumstances, they're violating that accord, and we and NATO are violating that accord by not coming to their defense, like it or not.
But no, I thought it was the opposite. We agreed not to. They were not going to be part of NATO, and we were not going to
For-
have
No, but we
agreed
agreed.
to fight for them.
We
That's what
agreed.
Russia didn't want us to come in on their behalf.
Right, but Russia also agreed to come to their aid if it was needed, and that they would not be attacked. The other thing is,
that's good for Russia.
I'm just saying, the other thing is, if you look at And I just lost my point here on this one. It had having to do with the origins of this. Where you come in on this is important. So again, after, you know, in Russia and Putin, even though he's a psychopath, he's very nervous about having NATO countries on his border. You can agree, disagree, but we know that makes him there. He doesn't like that. We had the Baltic states become NATO partners. He definitely didn't like that. But that was, you know, what, 15 years ago, something like that. He never attacked them. If you look back at the rhetoric, and I'm going through like all administrations going back, there's been like, oh man, Ukraine should be part of NATO. I mean, some more than others, and kind of like pushing this. And Ukraine's been saying we want to part of it. We kind of fostered this, you know, breathed air into it, knowing that Putin would be pissed off about that. Instead of just letting cooler heads prevail, and we just kept like blowing air on those embers.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but to sit there now and be like, oh man, what's all this going on? I mean, Putin telegraphed this for like 10 years.
He said it for a long time. Yep.
It's
well,
not.
Here's an interesting idea
to anybody.
What's stopping us to say, Russia, would you like to be a part of NATO?
Because NATO was designed to destroy Russia.
To stop Russia, right? But again, like we're talking about like a peacekeeping force that's world building, right? So ultimately, like if you do that, and this just came to me, so I have no idea if there's any merit. I swear to God, I haven't smoked.
No, we should run with it.
But you ask him, say, hey, you want to join us?
They don't.
He's got to say no then, and you know, then you got to start to rationalize why you say no. Right. One of the things that we haven't spoken at all about too, and I know you, Tom, you know, still go around the room, but I think we definitely need to take some time to talk about the role of China as what's happening now. Right. I think that's very
on my list.
Okay, please, Michael, then you're going to know more than me. But
yeah, no, I mean, so my whole thing, and this is just my personal feeling, like I said, like again, I'm kind of disgusted about the rhetoric surrounding all of this. I'd like someone to answer me how sending MiG-29s to Ukraine is more provocative than sending Patriot missiles. I'd like to find out why that's more provocative than doing what we're already doing. You know, Russia is looking to China for arms and everything. I'm definitely not interested in getting into another war, but this whole weird tap dance that we're doing, like, well, if we do this, that's going to provoke nuclear, but we can do this over here. But
I think
there's like no rhyme or reason to it.
A very simple, and I don't know if this is true or not, that a javelin is a defensive weapon where a MiG can be an offensive weapon.
And I think the MiG has a larger range.
Could be. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I'm saying Moscow, I don't know what these terms are. No one's explaining the terms, right? So it seems to be convenience. Like these decisions are arbitrary and capricious. There's no,
the line's got to be here until it's here.
And there's no basis
here again. Yeah.
There's no basis for it. So and then, you know, what is Putin going to do? I mean, you know, I always make it personal, I'm sorry, but we had to listen to 5 months of the journalists guaranteeing us that no way was Putin going to invade Ukraine when he had like 150,000 troops sitting on the border by Christmas time. Just, I don't know, man. Like, it drives me crazy that we look to these experts, whatever, the people on the Sunday shows and the bureaucrats, like they know something. They have no fucking idea what they're talking about, man. I mean, I don't have any idea what I'm. My point is, we don't know, and to me, that's like, as far as what makes me angry or wakes me up in the middle of the night, like Tom says, this whole Afghanistan thing.
Does it grind your gears?
That's what grinds my gears, man. Is like, I don't even know what the rules are, man, and we have zero idea what's going on. Now, as far as China is concerned, they're loving this, man, because they are definitely allied with Putin, but they don't particularly like Russia. China and Russia do not have a fantastic relationship going back. It's a marriage of convenience. But what's happening is their northern neighbor is getting weakened and diminished on the world stage, and the West, and they don't have to do anything. And the West is being viewed as incredibly weak and in chaos. NATO and the US, all the European countries. I mean, they're looking at they are appearing as feckless to the Chinese. The Chinese are not, look,
Affect me, affect you.
Xi Jinping does not sit there and like, wring his hands about what he's going to do next. He knows exactly what he's doing, man. And like, again, we've said this for a few episodes. If I was in Taiwan, I'd be getting ready to pose for my shot with my skin tight t-shirt on, or I'd be like getting a plane ride out of there, depending on where you fall.
Living in Taiwan. Living in Taiwan's got to be
this.
kind of like living in Pompeii. I mean,
if I may, we've been very good at our predictions.
Very good. We've been very accurate, actually.
Here's what I see happening. I think we reach a standstill with this whole Ukrainian thing. I think Ukraine probably is not going to fare well at the end of this. And I think that the next big world dilemma, if it's not another fucking virus, is going to be China, Taiwan, and China starting to flex their muscle. Because let's be real, man. Russia, honestly, ain't really that big of a deal. We're less of a big deal than we were 30 years ago. China fucking owns the world. I mean, everybody owes them. I think
they're on the rise. They're definitely on the rise.
You think they have imperialistic tendencies outside of Taiwan?
100%.
So now here's an interesting. I honestly,
in my opinion. Sorry.
I think.
I mean, geographically, it's a lot tougher, right?
No, look, they've got land battles with disputes with India already. They've got Tibet, the issue there,
Africa.
the Uyghurs, all around.
Yes, but
it's like a ring of fire. Hong Kong, they just took over recently. So,
well, do you need like it's an interesting way to look at the world.
Hong Kong, though. They didn't take over Hong Kong. Hong Kong's contract was up.
No, they weren't.
Relatively.
No, they took it, dude. It was supposed to go on for another few decades. No, it was like 2050.
But it was a non like nobody.
They were supposed to allow Hong Kong to have its own government. They jailed the government and held false elections and put in people that were, aligned with Beijing. They completely took it over.
My lack of knowledge of the facts aside,
does not preclude me having an opinion. Me too.
Yes, I still have an opinion. Here's what I think, honestly. I think, honestly, China has probably got more of the Robin Williams. I think it was Robin Williams that said this about just building a wall all the way around the nation and just fucking leaving everybody else alone.
Like a Great Wall of China? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that. You can see it from space. But I honestly think that China I think they're just giddy. I think they're very happy with the situation that they've got, and they're probably not going to do very much to upset all the money coming in and all. Well,
that's an interesting point that you said, Zeus, because I was thinking that imperialism can take a couple of different takes with this, right? It's the obvious wanting of land and increasing your size and what have you. They already are winning economic imperialism, right? So do they need the land to back that up when we're already beholden to them with our debt and our products?
And we're honoring it. Most of the world is honoring their debts to China. Yeah. So
when they say, we talked about this, sorry, Toar. When they say one China, what that term means to China means Taiwan belongs to them. Hong Kong belongs to them.
Sure.
All their territories belong to them. There's all one China. And that's what their goal is. It doesn't matter about money. They want everything back into the fold.
It's more like a street cred thing.
Well, like, does it go so far, like as Indonesia, that was not necessarily under Chinese rule, but was very heavily
looking like outside of what it was traditionally theirs.
That's what I mean. That's similar then to Putin and the USSR, right? So, So like if like one China is what they were looking to, reunite or what have you. But does it go beyond that where Putin goes to Poland and goes to, looking into getting into Western Europe? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's like I say Indonesia.
A problem.
Sorry, please.
The minute they walk over, like line in the sand, The minute they walk over that Polish border, or what's
Sure.
the one beneath them? Belarus is not a problem. Belarus is in their pocket.
Moldova is there. Yeah.
Yeah. The minute, Moldova. If they cross over into Moldova, not so much as Poland. If they cross over into Poland, it's going to be a shit show. I don't think that that's what they're going to do, though. I think he just wants to say, "I got what's mine."
Yep.
And it would be. And this is where my argument that although I think he's a piece of shit, I don't get, when I watch him, I don't get a psychotic madman vibe. I get a driven, tradition-based kind of guy. I think he just wants what he grew up with, and he wants to do that and then take his ball and go home.
That will be his legacy then, is to reunite the Russia of his youth.
But at what
USSR.
cost, though?
Yeah.
Huge
Well, it's
cost.
interesting that the difference
horrendous.
I said
between
a couple of weeks ago, Zeus, I agree with you.
the difference between the imperialistic tendencies that he's showing and the imperialistic tendencies of China is the economic influence that China wields over the world, right? So if they do step over whatever that red line is, and it's probably not Taiwan, it's probably not Hong Kong, but if that line does get
India, it would be India. Or,
yes, exactly,
or Pakistan. Or,
yeah. So
You don't think
India,
Taiwan's the red line?
Yeah.
If
No,
they
I don't.
go into
I
Taiwan,
honestly don't. I think we'll
you're
be
just
very
going to let it
sad,
happen?
and I think we'll be motivated, but I don't think that's going to change the world.
I think
You
it's
can't
really
let
hard to
them
put
have
economic
Taiwan.
sanctions on a country that owns so much of our debt.
That's what they're
Like it's-
counting on.
Yeah, it's going to be
Also-
very, very difficult. And whereas Russia, I don't know what's propaganda and what's not, but it sounds like the collapse of their economy is relatively imminent. So that's something that's a very, very different thing. Sanctions aren't going to work against China.
Well, and a lot of this Ukraine thing has to do with getting a pipeline going, doesn't it?
No,
The
they
Russian
have
pipeline to Germany.
that's already there.
I don't know. I seem to remember hearing
Which
something about the
pipeline?
Ukraine being key to.
You
there's
want to
different
know?
pipeline. The Keystone, they could start that back up. It would help, but
Yeah, that's our pipeline.
Yeah.
I think China and Russia, it's the new axis of evil. Probably
Yeah.
China, Russia, and Iran together.
I mean, here's a couple things though these are just general thoughts. I'm not just talking about China and Russia, but the history of empires, going Rome, the Ottoman Turks, when you are on the rise as an empire, it's like being a shark. You need more resources. You need to increase your sphere of influence. You need more people, conscripts, whatever. You have to feed it. It has to grow, right? So people who are like, oh man, I don't want to see that happen. Well, I don't know if this is accurate as of today, but there's like 190 countries in the world. There was a time in our lifetime, actually right after the Soviet Union fell, we had military stationed in like 160 of those 190 countries, something crazy like that. I remember the first time I read that, I was like, what?
I was just going to ask you about American imperialism and where was our nation building time?
We're everywhere. We have 12 or 13 now floating islands called aircraft carrier groups. The next most that any country has, I believe, is one. And these things have thousands of our Navy and Marines on them, dozens of ships associated with them. We can project our power over the entire globe and now into space. So China especially is on the rise, and they are looking to grow, and that is why they're in India. That's why they're in Africa. They don't have to put a Chinese flag down in Ethiopia to exert influence over there. I mean, we have troops everywhere. We don't necessarily put our flag there except when it's on a base. So to answer everyone's questions, Putin and Xi 100% have ambitions to grow and ambitions of empire. And where does that end? I don't know. Where is it practical? I mean, are they going to come to North Jersey tomorrow? Probably not. I mean, I don't think we have to
not.
worry about Red Dawn happening anytime soon.
Right.
But
They're already here, though.
They're already here. But I'm saying
That's kind of, yeah, no, that's an important point. They are definitely already here. So do you cut off, like, it's very different with the oligarchs in Russia and their influence in the world economy versus China's influence in the world economy. Do they cut off their nose to spite their face by saying, all right, I'm going to do something that's going to force the United States to default on their debt, or force the United States to cut off our imports when they're still providing us with plenty of goods? Like, they've already got they already got us by the balls,
Yeah.
to a point, right? So that economic imperialism, do they risk that through traditional imperialism? If they take Taiwan, does that make us say that we have to have sanctions? Because sanctions it's not good for the Chinese government. It's not good for us either. I don't know if we could actually enforce any sanctions, you know? It's very different than what's up
not
with
pay
Russia.
our bills.
But here's the thing that's important about Taiwan, okay? It's like, for us on this broadcast and most people who have a soul and a heart, they don't want to see China take over Taiwan because they know they're going to take a free people and like put them under the iron fist of authoritarianism. But for the US as a superpower, the problem with Taiwan is if you have China go in and take it over, there's a ton of these other countries that I'm talking about that are in our sphere of influence all over the world. And they're not Taiwan, but they may be like, I'm just throwing a name out here, Madagascar. It's not Madagascar, but whatever. And so we have all these deals with Madagascar. You know what? If you let us take your fish out of the water and mine this, we're going to take care of you. And they're like, oh, okay, US, that's great. And then they see China go in and pave Taiwan and we don't do anything. They start being like, I need to find a new sugar daddy here because this guy's not going to back me up. That's the US's concern about Taiwan. Make no mistake about that. I think the thing that's
step one
is step one. I think the thing. What?
It's going to be. Let's look 50 years, 100 years into the future. It's going to be this huge what's the term? Is the term archipelago? Archipelago. So it's going to be that. It's going to be 3 or 4 massive forces. We'll call one Eurasia. We'll call one Africa, obviously, South America, US, and then Australia will get eaten up by somebody. But
watch out, Mitch is listening.
Come down. I think we're just working towards this world of like 4 different groups, may even share a lot of interest, and it's just that's going to be the next thing. And then after that, hopefully, to quote Dana from a while back, I think that Boyle's going to get lanced, and we're going to have to come to some, hopefully, accommodating one world, not new world, but one world order where everybody just has to fucking realize we got to get along, because it ain't doing us any good fighting all the time.
I don't know. I think what we need to
never
do,
happens.
What we need to do is make sure that we're more independent. We need to be energy independent. We need to start doing our own oil, our own gas, make sure we keep our own food in-house. We need to do more manufacturing. Stop relying on China so much. Stop
I have
relying
a very
on Russian
important
oil.
question.
You're here, Tom.
I was looking at the news, and I heard...
Because that's what's going to protect us, by the way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zeus.
Well,
I agree with that. I'd like to hear some
something
green
else that might
energy
protect us.
in your list there too, but I totally agree with that.
I've been looking at the news, and I heard that one of my favorite people on the planet, I know not everybody agrees.
Britney Spears.
I heard that Elon Musk challenged Vladimir Putin to a cage match in Ukraine.
Yes.
I don't know if it was a cage match.
He'd get killed, by the way.
Yeah,
Putin would kill his ass.
Since Putin is a well-renowned judo master, unless Elon Musk has some like magic power gloves.
Yeah, but Elon Musk is Tony Stark, so he probably has something.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping
he's Tony Stark,
and he has his Iron Man uniform on, because
he does, dude. He's got that.
I'm sorry, man. I fucking love Elon Musk. dropping off internet to the Ukraine. How do you not
I think
like
that's great.
Jack,
That's,
when
you
you're
know,
ready.
But I got one thing to say real quick. The big difference right now that this is the last part of what I was going to say, that we're facing geopolitically, that is a game changer and is very different. And I love looking at history, but I can't look at history for this, is we have these new powers now that we didn't have before, and they're called these multinational corporations, new powers, multinational corporations. You've got, you know, all of these large companies, Apple, whatever, they are not loyal to the United States. They are not loyal to here.
Certainly not.
They're in China.
You look, but listen, no, they're not even that, man. Listen, look at what happened with Russia within the last 3 weeks. You had Coca-Cola, Apple, all these like pool all of their assets and their people and their spending and all. This was not at the direction of the Congress or the US president or NATO or anyone else or any government or any representative body. These were individual, like non-land owning, basically nations that completely are destroying the Russian economy. Now it's sanctions, but a lot of it is related to these businesses, and that is a new thing. And we've never had that before.
It's interesting, but you know, the reason why is
not to the scale.
It's just PR, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But they are actually pulling assets, is what I'm saying.
Here's the thing that
I mean,
pisses
they're
me
losing
off.
money. They're, you know, that's true. But at the same time, it's because, man, did Disney look bad? Like, you know, when they were talking about the Don't Say Gay in Florida, and Disney said, well, you know, we're going to still back the politicians that are for that, but we're going to be LGBTQ positive in the work that we do. And they took a whole lot of shit for it, and all of a sudden they had to reverse course.
They're still
that's
in
going
China.
on with Coke. That's going on with Coke. That's going on with, you know, it's tougher to go on with China. It's tougher because we are so reliant on the products that are coming in from them. I can't see Walmart saying we're going to stop doing business with China when a lot of the stuff that they sell is made in China. Right? That becomes a whole lot more different. You know,
I'm saying we have a lot less products that say made in the USA and a hell of a lot more that say
I'd love to see that. I would love to see that. You know, we're not a nation of builders anymore. We're a nation of consumers. And, you know, that's okay too, because you need that, but it means that we're going to buy the things from the lowest, you know, the people that are selling it to us, they need to make their margins. So they're certainly going to buy from the lowest bidder.
I'm really glad that I'm glad that I stirred up the hornet's nest tonight.
Who drives the Ford?
I got everybody going.
Guys, we covered a lot of ground here, guys. Can I
before I go, can I just tell a quick story?
Sure.
Before we're done. So this has a little to do with what we've been talking about and a lot of nothing to do with it, but I think it's just an interesting story. So 2007, July, my wife's birthday is July 3rd. She was 7+ months pregnant with our second. Our first was about 2 years old, and the grandparents said, we'll take them, you go away for the weekend. Great. We just wanted to go to have some dinner and sleep in the hotel and not be woken up, really. So we're staying up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We go up, go out and have a nice lunch, pull into the Holiday Inn in Portsmouth. And it's a typical, whatever, it's got the covered place where you can drop your stuff off, and then the short-term parking up front. We pull in, and there's 5 identical cars with diplomatic plates. We're like, whoa, what the heck is this, right? We park up real close. She's huge. She's 7.5 months pregnant. We walk in underneath the covered area, and in one of these other vans is a gentleman in the back seat. The doors open, van doors open, all black flight suit, right? No insignias, eating a sandwich, like eating a Wonder Bread sandwich, right? Like, what the fuck is going on? This is some crazy shit. We check in, we go over to the elevator, we get on the elevator with 2 gentlemen, and one of them was Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
Right? He was there for the summit in Kennebunkport with W.
He was staying at a Holiday Inn?
Staying at the Holiday Inn. I'm sure they had the whole, and he looked at him, and I'm like, I looked at him, they let us on the elevator.
Holiday Inn Express.
It was not, yes, exactly. He looked at us like, my wife is huge, right? So they were gentlemen. They let us on the elevator with them. which I was totally surprised about. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I just kind of nodded to him, like I didn't say anything. I'm like, this is fucking Vladimir Putin. I can't believe this shit.
Did you punch him in the balls or anything?
No, dude, like the guy in the fucking flight suit had me, you know,
Rochambeau you for it.
right? You know, like, dude, that flight suit guy.
You could have solved this whole problem, man.
You know, so like I just like nod to him. My wife's like, yeah, and we got it over. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was Vladimir Putin. She's like, was it really? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. If like he's 5'5" or whatever, like let's go look it up, because he was small. But I'm like, I'm fucking sure it was him. And he looked kind of perturbed that we were on the elevator, but you know.
This is before his distance phase. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like holy shit. I was on an elevator with Vladimir Putin.
Well, you had the opportunity to save the world of all of this. I'm gonna think of you when I'm filling out my gas tank
my
tomorrow.
Pregnant wife, I'm holding 2 bags, but I'm gonna hit him with the bottle bag that we had. You know, like, you know,
Three Stooges action or something.
Wow.
Yeah, he was right there.
That's a great story.
Toar, I need you to hop into your DeLorean and go
Yeah,
exactly
go back. Yeah,
80 miles per hour.
Once the cancer diagnosis has taken me and I'm on the end, I'll definitely hop into DeLorean and
head on back.
Sure. Yeah.
Listen, man, I've said that a million times. If I get cancer, like the good one, like the one that does you, fucking strap a bomb to my back and just walk.
Here we go.
Do something about it. Yeah.
Here we go. This is what's going to be on CNN. All right. Thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Wrap us up.
Yeah, no, guys, we definitely have been on for a long time now. It was a great episode, but I think it's time we wrap things up.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Adios, everybody.
Adios.
It's a pleasure, everybody. I can't wait for the next one.
Mike, it says host disabled screen sharing. Can you enable screen sharing? I don't want to do a whole lot of pictures because I like to see our faces. Well, I don't like to see your faces, but the audience probably wants to see your faces.